We begin with the latest from the United Nations. Russia has blocked the renewal of a panel of UN experts monitoring longstanding sanctions against North Korea over its nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs. This comes just a week after the UN panel said it was investigating reports that Russia violated rules by buying North Korean weapons, including ballistic missiles for use in Ukraine. In the 15-member council, 13 voted in favor, Russia voted against, and China abstained. Russia's veto was met with a flurry of criticism, and Washington said Moscow's veto was a corrupt bargain with Pyongyang. South Korea also called Russia's move an irresponsible decision despite its status as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Kyiv said Russia's veto was a guilty plea amid allegations that Pyongyang is aiding Moscow in the war in Ukraine.
Russia's actions today have cynically undermined international peace and security, all to advance the corrupt bargain that Moscow has struck with the DPRK. Moscow appears to be intent on facilitating the DPRK's illegal pursuit of weapons of mass destruction, and its veto today was a self-interested effort to bury the panel's reporting on its own collusion with the DPRK to secure weapons that it can use to further its aggression against Ukraine.
At this moment, Russia seems to be more interested in embracing or encouraging the DPRK for its provision of munitions and ballistic missiles for the conduct of war in Ukraine, at the expense of nuclear non-proliferation regime and proper functioning of the Security Council. There can be no justification for disbanding the guardians of the UN's DPRK sanctions regime, consisting of multiple resolutions adopted unanimously by this Council. This is almost comparable to destroying a CCTV to avoid being caught red-handed.
The panel, through its work to expose sanctions non-compliance, was an inconvenience for Russia. It is deeply concerning that Russia, a permanent member of this Council, has taken such action. But let me be clear to Russia. The sanctions regime remains in place. And the UK remains committed to holding DPRK to account for its compliance with the sanctions regime.
Now, Russia has repeatedly denied using North Korean weapons, and its UN ambassador went on to call the West's claims unfounded insinuations. Now, to be clear, Moscow's veto at the UN Security Council does not remove the sanctions on North Korea, but the veto does, in fact, disband the expert group set up to monitor the violations.
We are convinced that it is high time for the Council to engage in reflection on updating the sanctions regime in respect of the DPRK. Our country repeatedly advanced ideas to that effect and tried to adapt the restrictions to the rapidly changing realities on the ground. One such initiative is the Russian-Chinese humanitarian draft resolution that remains relevant. However, all of our attempts to advance that have time and again come up against the absolute reluctance of Western countries to deviate from their destructive and punitive logic vis-a-vis the DPRK. A weapon in this harmful situation is now the panel of experts of the 1718 committee. It has ceased to carry out its direct obligations. Its work is increasingly being reduced to playing into the hands of Western approaches, reprinting biased information and analyzing newspaper headlines and poor quality photos. In so doing, the group is essentially conceding its inability to come up with sober assessments of the status of the sanctions regime.
Now, North Korea has been under mounting UN sanctions since 2006 in response to its nuclear program. Russia and China have tried to persuade the UN Security Council to ease the sanctions against Pyongyang. And in 2016 and 2017, additional Security Council sanctions were in fact leveled on North Korea. However, Kim Jong-un's regime has largely ignored these sanctions and expanded North Korea's nuclear weapons production and capability. The North Korean leader has been on a weapons testing spree since the beginning of 2022. In fact, just last week, Pyongyang tested a solid fuel engine for a new hypersonic missile. Now, Kim Jong-un has also ordered his military to boost its readiness in preparation for war.